Welcome, everybody. This is the October Builder Town Hall, and we are so glad you are here. The number one thing that you have that is most precious to you is your time. And for you to give us a few minutes of it today, we thank you for your trust, and we promise to use it wisely. It is October the 7th, and this is a very special day in my family. So I wanted to give a shout out to my dad, who is turning, I won't say the number, but it is his birthday today. Happy birthday, Dad. I love you so much. You are the public speaking genius that gave me whatever gifts that I have. And I am just so thankful for you. And I'm so glad that we're going to celebrate your birthday soon, I'm sure. Okay, so we have a packed agenda today for you. Of course, we have our special guest, Steve Dennis. His book is right over my shoulder. Angela will share a link in chat where you can find it on Amazon, but don't go buying it quite yet, because at the end, when Steve bids us farewell and we've used enough of his time today, we will do a pop quiz on the interview today, just to see how much did you get, what did you learn, what did you take away, and the winners with the top scores on that pop quiz, Angela is going to do book giveaways of Remarkable Retail. So I just want to tell you that I absorbed this book like a Hoover vacuum attacking a pile of confetti. Like, I could not take it in enough or fast enough. I don't think you can see it from over my shoulder, but I've got little tabs all the way through it because I took so many notes to prepare for today, but also because it's just great information. Of course, there's so many parallels between working in a model home, working in a showroom, working in a design center, and working in a retail location. As Carrie has been teaching us for years, think retail when you're selling new homes. So here we've got the world leading expert on remarkable retail, and we're going to get his insights in just a few minutes. Okay, so next we're going to do my Meredith metrics segment that I do each Builder Town Hall. As you know, our company, Meredith Communications, we do digital marketing for builders. Our goal is to help you create wow with your digital marketing presence that will make the customer experience, even before they buy, make it amazing. And the word that we use around here is fantastic. So we want you to be fantastic online, offline, all the way through the sales process. And that's what we do. So in order to do that, we monitor about 70 plus home builder website Google Analytics account per month. I have a dashboard, all of that feeds in, and that's where I get the metrics that I'm going to share with you today. So total website visits, like what does the top of the funnel look like for home builders right now? It's down 5% month over month. So September over August, we're down 5% on total visits. Year over year, we're on average, all of those websites average together down about 14%. Neither of those numbers are super scary to me, honestly, given how much the inflation or the interest rates have gone up, inflation impacting people, the fact that we're at the top of our price ceiling because of the increased material costs that we faced as home builders. Honestly, a 5% and a 14% decrease doesn't bother me. I'm actually kind of surprised at how good those are. Where I see it really declining, and what I think you should be paying attention to on your own metrics, are your lead conversions. Your lead conversions month over month are down 15% on average. So I know Steve's watching, Steve, when we say a lead, we're talking about someone calling from our home builder website, booking an online tour, to meet with an agent through the website, texting, live chat, we'll take them. I mean, if they want to send smoke signals, we'll take it as long as they give us their name, email, and phone number, right? So conversions on home builder websites down 15% month over month, down 8% year over year. That concerns me. And it's true for most of our clients that your leads are converting less. So what does that mean? All right, I want to see that you all are paying attention. So let's get into chat. You tell me, what does it mean for you when goal conversions go down? All right, I want you to light up the chat. What does that mean? So let's see it. I know you're thinking. Let's see. So what it means for you is that every lead becomes more valuable. That's what I'm looking for. Every lead becomes more valuable. So you've got to reevaluate what you're doing. That's exactly right. KT, you are on it. Yes, Hugh, thank you. There are fewer potential buyers in the pipeline. What does this make your potential pipeline of home sales do? It makes it go like this. This is not good for cash flow, right? So we've got to value every request for more information that we get. We've got to follow up, build relationships. And as our guests would say today, we have to be remarkable and stand out. And so a lot of what we'll be talking about today is for that purpose. I also want to tell you that using your digital footprint, your website, your social, to let your potential buyers know that you have some kind of interest rate offer or offer with purchase, we have found to be incredibly valuable. So one of the builder clients that we have that implemented a offer through a pop-up, I know, a website pop-up, that sounds horrible. Nope, they totally work. Their lead conversions were actually up 15% month over month, whereas the average is down 15. So that's what I'm telling you is there are still ways to get lead conversions. You have to be more creative. You've got to stand out. And then two, we've got to value each one just that much more. All right, so that's all the Meredith's metrics I'm going to do because we have a lot of great, we've got a great interview coming up. So let me invite Steve to join me and I'll do an introduction and get us started. Very good. First of all, I have to tell all of you, I have to give Steve major props and credit. He has never met any of us, Angela, me, or Carrie. He was kind enough to answer a cold call email from Angela through LinkedIn and just say, hey, I loved your book. Would you consider appearing at this? And he doesn't have time for this and he's doing it anyway. And so we are very appreciative. We're happy to meet you, Steve. We welcome you to the home building industry. And we're looking forward to hearing about it. Now, let me tell everybody your background in case they don't know. Steve is a leading expert on strategic growth and innovation, speaks worldwide on how businesses can reignite growth in the age of digital disruption. And, that's what I've been talking about for 20 years in this industry. So it's definitely a like mind. He's been named a top 5 retail influencer. Ooh, Steve, you're an influencer. That is cool.
Terribly, though.
Right? By multiple organizations. His thoughts on the future of shopping are regularly shared in media. He is a Forbes contributor. Steve, I think you spent about 30 years at the highest level of several major retail organizations, right?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, in fact, this is kind of returning home because when I was at Sears in the 90s for about 3 years, I ran the builder sales division. So
you did?
This is a return to the industry.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's really cool. Yeah, and then of course he's the author of Remarkable Retail, which we're going to be talking about today. All right, now, wink, wink. Y'all need to start taking notes so you can win in our pop quiz. Okay, so easy question first, Steve. Why retail for 30 years? What about it?
Well,
What about the industry? What about the challenges? What's your why?
well, I'd love to tell you that it was a highly deliberate move on my part. It was a little bit coincidental, sort of a longer story, but the short version is I spent the first part of my career working for a large strategy consulting firm. Then I was in the food industry for a bit. And I got a call from a headhunter to go into a strategy role at Sears Roebuck and Company. This is in the early 90s, so quite a while ago now. And I kind of liked the challenge. Sears, as people probably know, has been struggling and pretty much non-existent at this point. But to me, there was this classic brand that had lost its way, and there was an opportunity for me to come in and hopefully make a difference. So it's not so much retail. It was really more the opportunity to be with an organization. I was living in Chicago, wanted to stay there. So it was a little bit of a coincidence how I ended up getting into retail. What I found was that I just loved the industry. I loved solving consumer problems. I loved the immediacy of retail. It's certainly not the only industry where you can get that kind of immediacy. Obviously, the builder industry and others have that. But I love the consumer psychology part and just kind of making things happen, day to day, face to face with consumers. And I haven't left. So it's occurred to me a few times.
Yeah. And when did you transition from working in retail organizations to your own consulting business that you're doing now?
It's been about, I guess it's about a dozen years. So after I left Sears, I moved down to Dallas, where I am, to be the head of strategy and multi-channel marketing for the Neiman Marcus Group, which is I refer to in the book as my move from the outhouse to the penthouse, because things weren't so great at Sears when I left, and Neiman Marcus is, in a lot of respects, a very different business. And then I decided to go out on my own, doing independent strategy consulting, and then I've added writing and speaking, and we launched a podcast, Remarkable Retail Podcast, almost exactly 2 years ago now. So yeah, I like to think I'm this like Renaissance man, but I'm mostly talking to myself when I say that.
Yeah, I know the feeling. So one of there were many amazing concepts in your book that I wanted to share today. I had to narrow it down. One of the first ones I wanted to talk about was what you call the collapse of the middle.
Right. Yeah.
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 Explain what that is and the two
Sure.
ends of the spectrum and kind of what you've observed with retail companies in regards to that.
Yeah, well, the basic idea, if you think about most businesses, not just retail, a lot of the kind of strategic positioning occurs on a spectrum. At one end of the spectrum, you've got more of the price, value, convenience, kind of down and dirty, efficiency-oriented brands. At the other end of the spectrum, you have the more either luxury or kind of upscale premium kind of sector, and then everywhere in between. And what I started to notice first at Sears, but particularly when I got to Neiman Marcus, so this is going back 15 years, that I was seeing a lot of success at either end of that spectrum, but a lot of the struggles that were occurring in the market were really in this middle ground. So in the case of retailers in particular, but I think this plays out in a lot of other segments over time, that the retailers in the middle, they were neither the most, they didn't present the best value. So they weren't the lowest price, or they didn't have great convenience or operational efficiency or whatever. But at the same time, they also didn't offer anything really special in terms of product or experience or sales help or environment or whatever. And I think that's largely a function of what's happened by virtue of digital disruption. It used to be the competition was local. And so if you had a great location or a really great sales force or a particular product mix or whatever, you could win. But as basically the internet happened, suddenly consumers could get all sorts of information very easily. They often could secure product and services from places outside of their town. So this idea of being a little bit to everything, a little bit of everything to everybody, suddenly became, kind of uninteresting. So really, this pattern of the middle dissipating or collapsing has been going on, I think, for in some sectors more than 20 years. but it's really accelerated. And so, that's fundamentally what the book is about is, how do you avoid irrelevance and get out of that a little bit of everything to everybody positioning to do something that really is distinctive and folks want to talk about.
And what's interesting is I shared my Meredith metrics at the beginning of the town hall today and the averages and so forth. But I'll tell you, several of our clients do cater to that upscale, or the location or the style of the product is an amazing different experience. And I'll tell you, those folks are not in a decline in
Right.
website traffic, in website leads. And the people on the value end, certainly anybody who can really compete on price with how expensive lumber and everything else is, they're doing fine. It is truly the clients that I see that are kind of stuck in that middle. It's just not remarkable in any particular way. And that's where the biggest declines in the pipeline of future sales has been.
Yeah, I think I'm working on a new book and I've been doing some research, and I think we really see a lot of this collapse in the middle play out in just about every industry sector I've looked at. Now, one thing I try to be careful about is this doesn't mean that there isn't a spectrum of pricing, that it doesn't mean that there isn't a middle ground in terms of sort of good, better, best, as we often talk about in retail. It's really more about the positioning of the brand. And if you haven't picked, are you trying to really offer, sort of more bang for the buck fundamentally, or are you trying to really offer something that really tells a story about the customer buying it? It's really more the positioning. It's not just exclusively about price point, because I think, certainly in apparel, certainly in homes, I mean, you can go hotels, like you can go through a lot of businesses where it doesn't mean that the middle price point is going away. It's really that brand positioning,
Yes,
the distinguishing factor.
Yes. So one of the trends or things that I'm hearing a lot from clients, from our builders, is we need to cut costs on marketing, or cut back on sales, how many salespeople we have, or take away the assistants. So, it's not as good an experience in the model home. We're seeing this major temptation to really pull back right now as the market cools, corrects, whatever term you want to use, as it changes. Yeah. And you really, in the book, you warn against that. And you actually talk about that most retailers, and again, this would apply to most businesses, there's two things that they are having issues with, two specific things, and cutting costs isn't going to help either of these issues.
Well, I think the big one, I mean, at one level, it's pretty obvious, right? You want to make sure you're solving the right problem, right? And if you are losing your position in the market because you aren't relevant and remarkable enough, then it's unlikely that cutting costs will make a difference. And now, this is not to say that there aren't times to cut costs. I mean, I've done it many times in management positions, and it was the sensible thing to do. And sometimes, it's a short-term hit you just have to take because, situation outside of your control, like
cash flow is cash flow.
Right. I mean, there is no future if you don't solve the present, right? So, sometimes you have to do that. But I think what I see a lot is businesses get into trouble because they have a relevance problem, not because, and so if you are already suffering in terms of the customer experience, for example, or you're suffering because you don't have marketing voice that's competitive or whatever, cutting those things is likely to make the situation worse. One of the particular things to retail, and it's so much of an issue in the builder world, is it's also very common to close stores. And many of the retailers that are suffering are not as convenient as some of the competition that is stealing the business. So if you close a store, one thing you know for sure is you've made yourself less convenient. Again, you may have to do that. I'm not saying never close stores or never cut costs or never pull back on marketing. You got to make sure it's working. But the main thing is to understand why you are not acquiring new customers, why you're not growing with the customers you
Mhm.
already have, why you're not getting the net promoter score or whatever measure of storytelling acceleration that is important to driving your business forward.
Yeah, in the home building world, our version of closing stores would be pulling back on how many sales team members we have, for example.
Right.
And so not every model home is open during the hours advertised because one salesperson is covering 3 of them and is hopping around
Right.
and doing his or her best. That's us closing our stores, as
Sure.
we aren't as available to take appointment tours through a model, or we don't have the coverage. On the weekends, a lot of times a home builder will have a sales assistant who kind of will do some greeting and some initial work so that the customer is taken care of while the main salesperson is working with someone else. So we
Right.
cut the assistants. Now there's no one to greet anybody, and the sign says, "I'll be back later." It's not good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you can, particularly if you think about what's happened in COVID, I think if you go to restaurants, I think a lot of us probably had the experience where, it's been difficult in a lot of places to keep restaurants staffed. And if that is a common experience for the customer, then I think you get cut a little bit of slack. But if
Mhm.
you can go elsewhere and get that attention and get that level of customer service and have that availability, you're just not showing up in a way relative to the competition that makes it look like, number one, you just can run your business. But, I think, one of the things I say in the book, which is not something that I came up with, but I think in many cases, particularly if we're asking the customer to pay a premium price, so whether that's for a pair of jeans or it's for a new home or a car or whatever, if you're asking the customer to pay a premium price, they are buying in, I would argue, they're buying into a story about themselves. I'm the sort of person that wants to live in this sort of house or this sort of community or this part of town or what have you. And if it's, so people buy the story before they buy the product.
Yes.
And if that's true, and the first thing they see when they experience your brand or your showroom is, they're not really available for me, or I'm not getting the attention, or I'm not getting that level of client customer interaction. Is this a brand that I want to be part of? Emotionally, probably not. So it's not just about, you should greet somebody and you should, within 30 seconds or, that sort of transactional stuff. That's important too. But it's really more the image that the customer is left with. And I think once you start going in that direction, or that's the story that gets told about your brand, that's a hard thing to win back.
Yes. And so wink, wink, if you're paying attention, he gave you one of the answers right there. They buy the what before they buy the product, right? The story. And it's the story that they want to tell themselves, the story that they want to tell others around them about why they want to live in your home in that location, and the style and the design, all of that. It fills in blanks for the buyer, who they are and how they want to represent themselves to the world.
Yeah, I think any great brand, I mean, that's sort of inherent to branding. I think it's not a new idea. I think what's newer is, with social media, it's a lot easier. I mean, people, and you could argue whether this is psychologically healthy. I think there are many things that aren't necessarily emotionally healthy, but the way that we are connected and the way we can share, that great restaurant we just ate at, or the fabulous trip we're on, or whatever, like that just gets so amplified. Whereas it used to be, you're sitting at a barbecue or, hanging out in the carpool lane, talking to your friends, that was the way you told these stories. But now they get so amplified that if they're great, it gives you so much more marketing oomph, or technical term oomph, or, if it's not so good, then that can spread as well. So we want to create these brand stories that people want to spread. And that gives us that extra level, so that's sort of the raving fans kind of, having fan idea, that's not, again, it's not a new one. I think it just operates differently. It's even more important in the last few years than it's been.
Yes. And what I would say, I mean, I've had this conversation just this week with a builder, which was, there's no marketing your way. And there's no amount of marketing, and there's no way to market your way out of a bad product, out of bad service, out of if it's priced wrong, if you bought a piece of land nobody wants to live on. Like there are certain things that do have to be present. We can't market you out of it. And one of them is a negative social reputation and reviews. So welcome, Ange. Welcome, Carrie.
Hey.
We're glad you're here.
When you said amplify and raving fans, we thought we'd join in.
It was time for you to jump in. Yeah.
Amplify, and then we went 1, 2, 3, go.
Go. Yeah. Well, and just to make sure that we, on that last talking point, what he was describing, what he talks about in the book, the two things is the strategy and the execution. So when we're all these things that we're talking about, we're saying, hey, maybe we should just cut costs. Wait a minute. Look at the strategy of who are you targeting? Do you have a clear story for them and that fits with them? And then the execution of that, managing and following up on leads and working with the customer before and after sale for that wow factor. All right.
Yeah, and if I could I just mention something quickly related to that? The other thing that I think, well, one of the things I talk about in the book, I have this 8 Essentials of Remarkable Retail framework. And the first 6 I talk about as being more table stakes, and the last 2 more as differentiators. One of the things I see a lot of companies confusing is what is required just to be in the game or at parity, and what is really different. And I think that there are certain aspects of business today, regardless of what industry you're in, that have just become the expectation. So if you don't do them, you are out of the running. And so, like having a decent web presence or what have you. I mean, some of that stuff is just, if you don't have it, you look ridiculous and you're just out of it. And so we got to be careful not to sort of pat ourselves on the back for just being in the mix, right? Like you got to do a bunch of things. And so when you think about execution, what are just those basics, and really be honest with yourself about whether what you're doing is just the base minimum, or is it actually differentiating you? And that tends to get more to the strategy points. But the number of times I'll talk to clients or look at companies that I'm researching, and they're making a big deal about something they just did, I'm kind of like, well, 2010 wants its press release back. Like everybody's been doing that. That's, I mean, good for you, but you actually kind of look dumb because everybody else has been doing that for a while. But I think it's sometimes a lack of awareness of where the consumer has moved.
What I'm hearing, and an exercise that the leaders on this call could do, I'm envisioning, Carrie, a giant post-it piece of poster paper on the conference room wall with a line down the middle, and one side says table stakes and one side says differentiator, and as a group, let's brainstorm and list what are those, and do we have any of those? And that could be an interesting takeaway for you all today as a way to kind of process this information.
Absolutely, 100%. First of all, yes to the activity. Everybody should do activities after builder town halls. I wholeheartedly agree. But what I will say is, Ange and Meredith, to Steve, what is really ringing to us is, remember way back when we used to be coaching and training together, and we talked about people are going out and they're shopping to eliminate because there's too many choices. What are you doing to remain in the selection pile? So in what you just said, Steve, is that like table stakes are, maybe someone could eliminate you because everybody's got that. Now your differentiator puts you in the selection pile because I got to explore more. But most important, you kind of said this, and I think it's worthy of your expertise on this, is position your brand. But here's what everybody in your company needs to know. What's your brand? Right? Does everybody know what your brand? Yeah, like you guys all just looked at me like, duh. But I'm telling you.
No, we know.
All the strategy, execution, story, amplify it. What if everybody in the company doesn't even know the brand?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think, and this is stolen from my friend Seth Godin, it's a very fundamental question of when you think about your brand, who is it for and what is it for and what makes it remarkable? And a lot of times, like I'll use a retail example, not to pick on anybody in particular, but one of the reasons why a brand like JCPenney is suffering is, who is that store for? And what purchase occasions does it serve? That might have been relevant 30 or 40 years ago, but in this era, it's just a bunch of stuff for, average products for average people.
Yeah.
It's kind of and it's very hard to pick out who the target customer really is. That's different than JCPenney. I mean, that's different than Macy's, different than Kohl's, kind of go through the litany of competitors. And, what purchase occasions do they serve in a compelling way? And what are those remarkable or unique differentiating factors? So I think you've got to do that exercise minimally. And then I think the other overlay, which is more about one of the things I talk about in the book, is this idea of human-centered retail. And a lot of that, I mean, there's a lot to it, I think. Encourage people to dive into that. But one of the things is really, how do you make that emotional connection with the customer? How do you move from just being, this transaction? And when you're talking about homes, obviously, you're spending a lot of money. It's a long-term investment, ideally, and it's a place you're going to spend a huge amount of time in. So if anything, make that emotional connection, with that customer so that they're going to want to be part of that. We work with you, say you're a smaller builder, or be part of that community if you're a larger builder. That's incredibly important. And so branding should be really about the storytelling and that emotional way on top of the more kind of functional benefits and pricing and all the kind of important things, but not necessarily the thing that's really going to be that wow factor that causes them to pick you and share their story.
I found your discussion in the book about the definition of human-centered versus customer-centric to be very interesting. And it's not something I really read anywhere else. We herald customer-centric organizations, and of course that is a positive thing to do. But this idea of being remarkable is to push it further past customer-centric to human-centered. So share with us the difference in the two as you see it, and how that works.
Well, one is, people have been talking about customer centricity for decades, and I don't know if you were to do a study. Well, I'm pretty sure if you were to do a study on it, most of the companies that talk about it haven't done a very good job. So that just makes me wonder, what is it about? One of the jokes I make, which is not an original joke, is you call somebody and you get the tape that says, your call is very important to us. We'll be with you. And I'm like, if the call was important to you, you would have answered the phone, right? Like that's just sort of. So I think there's a lot of stuff about customer centricity that we're just sort of talking to ourselves. So that was kind of that was my starting point for delving into it. But the broader thing I think is, it's great to think about customers. But the reason why I wanted to expand the definition, kind of open the aperture, is first of all, there's lots of other people that are involved in creating a remarkable business, right? There's our sales associates, there are our suppliers, there's the communities in which we operate, there's the connections we have socially, as being good corporate citizens in terms of sustainability and other kinds of social impact factors. So I think just thinking more broadly, customers, obviously they're the people we're focused on. We're trying to get their money to pay our bills, et cetera. So I'm not going to say customers aren't important, but I think if we think more broadly about the other human beings that are involved in making things happen, that's a useful lens. The other thing is, talking about customers, or particularly target customers, it's a very kind of hostile kind of language, and you're my target customer. I'm I'm going to grab your money and take it. I just think, and I'm probably getting in my head a little bit more on that than I should. But I think if we think about humanity, we're trying to make a human connection with somebody. And I think that language just sort of forces us, or at least guides us, to thinking more about the emotional content. And again, I think when you're talking about I spend most of my time in retail. So in some cases, it's about selling a handbag or something that, people pay a silly amount of money for, you could argue. Shoes. You know, understanding that, and I'm being a little repetitive here, but like understanding that story that people want to tell about themselves and might be compelled to share with others, that's much more about developing empathy and understanding how customers feel a sense of safety and belonging and uniqueness and those sorts of things. So I think when we just talk about customer and target customers, much more of a transactional orientation. If we think about humans and making a soulful, empathetic connection, I think it allows us maybe to see some different things, which is why I think, and I go into this in the book a little bit, I'm hardly an expert in this, but human-centered design, I think, is something that is an area if people haven't checked that out, reading some of the material on that, it's just a little bit different way of addressing product market fit and your marketing and your offering, frankly.
So, and hang on one sec, Karen. So, and what I hear, him saying is this appealing to internal customers, recognizing that you have them, all of your team members, not just sales, your suppliers. Like when he says broaden constituencies, I'm thinking of the whole community that it takes. And regardless of whether they actually interact directly with a customer or not, they're involved in making the organization remarkable.
Oh, it requires the entire organization, doesn't it? It's not just the front. It's not just the people in the front. I know, Carrie, you've had examples of that in the past of how everybody within an organization can contribute to a fantastic human-centered experience.
Right. Well, and if you go back and you talk about the part of like, this is not the time to cut the budget, right? Possibly. What I also mean is what's free? What do you have that's right around you currently that's free? And it's everybody that works in your organization and what they say. And how many times do you come together as a whole? That's what I'm finding with companies right now, that as soon as we bring everybody together as a whole to understand, to celebrate, to educate, just all that, that's free. Yeah, okay, so it's an hour out of whatever they're doing. So there's maybe a payroll cost, right? But in the big picture, I think utilize all your voices in your company to sell your brand, right, Steve?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, if you've got suppliers, whether they're product suppliers or agencies or what have you, right, they have a vested interest in your business being successful. So, and they're probably not, they're not thinking about your business in the same way, or maybe, they're working. I mean, I think one of the great things about talking to suppliers of all kinds is they're working with other customers as well, right? So they're seeing things about what's going on in the market or what's working. And so they often have a lens, or at least a perspective, that is really useful input. So the combination of them being, hopefully aligned with your success, but also having that outside, maybe a bit more objective perspective, that can be incredibly useful. And to your point, I mean, obviously, if you're asking them to take an hour or whatever, there's some cost to that. But usually if you set it up right, it can be highly leveraged, right? Because if you're just saying, okay, let's work on this problem, or let's talk about this sort of input we want.
Right.
And, you can get a lot, I think, out of a very short focused session.
Yeah, you just used a great word when you alignment. And I think from your book, and when you put all this together, that mutual alignment with multiple resources is really important to you becoming remarkable. And I would throw a little tidbit out to our audience today, based on where we currently are and from Meredith's metrics and things that are happening. Get in alignment and include your preferred lenders as your partners to help you, because that is probably what's preventing some of your people that still want to buy but don't know how to buy. Steve, speak to helping people understand how to buy.
Well, I maybe you can tell me if I answer your question. One of the other things I suggest in the book, which I think helps unlock some opportunity, is, and this is also not something I came up with, but is to keep asking. Some people refer to it as the 5 whys. But what is the ultimate motivation of the customer, or what are the set of things that have to happen for them to get the outcome they want? So in the case of buying a home, there's the buying of the home, but most often there's also the financing of the home. But ultimately what that client probably wants is they want a fabulous place to live, entertain, raise their kids, whatever. It's a higher order outcome than a house. So I think if you think, you keep asking like the story that I tell in the book, just to be more specific, is it's kind of a famous story that Harvard Business School professor Ted Levitt talks about, which is nobody wants a drill. You don't buy a drill because you want a drill. You buy a drill because you want a hole. But actually, it's more than that. You need the hole to put up the shelves. Why do you want to put up the shelves? Because you're having a baby and you're creating a nursery. And why do you want the so if you keep asking the ultimate thing that the customer wants, it's often way more than the product you're selling. I think if you understand that, from a marketing standpoint, there may be different stories you want to tell, right? The other thing is, if ultimately I want a house, what are the other things that I need to get that ultimate dream home, right? I need the financing, I need a moving company, I need insurance. You kind of go through that, and that might create some other sources. I mean, just put it down to business terms, right? Might create other sort of revenue sources for you. That's good for you from a business standpoint, but ultimately makes you the preferred provider, and truly remarkable because you're solving bigger problems or delivering a great solution. So I think that's a little bit of the human-centered design approach.
Yeah.
So keep pushing to that. It's pretty rare. I mean, even we were talking about shoes earlier, right? Do you buy a pair of shoes because you want shoes? No, you buy a pair of shoes because you want to look fabulous and be noticed by your partner or whatever, right? Like that's what you want. The shoes are just a means to an end, and they may be pretty important and the easiest thing to understand. But nobody buys an expensive pair of shoes just because they want to be able to walk on not in their bare feet, right? Like that's not the reason that anybody pays a premium price.
People enjoy when I was out traveling, people enjoyed seeing what pair of shoes I was going to have on. Steve doesn't know I have quite a large collection.
It was part of your brand.
It was part of
yes.
So people enjoyed it, and I enjoyed them enjoying it, and that's why I bought them, and that's why I spent time on them. Yes, they were pretty, they look nice on my shelf, but I bought them because we all enjoyed me wearing them. It was fun. It was a talking point,
Right.
So yeah, you're 100%. So last topic is this idea you talked about in the book of how to find the pain points to improve and become more human-centered through the customer journey. Of course, you can do customer journey mapping. It can be quite extensive and expensive to do a full thing. So you suggested a friction audit as an inexpensive, quick way to identify some improvement opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely a big fan of customer journey mapping, and I think there are certainly different levels of doing it, and it's worthwhile to do, even if it's just getting a bunch of your team together and just trying to make sure you're paying attention. Because I do think in general, I've seen many companies that don't really appreciate the degree to which customer journeys have changed, most notably starting in a digital channel, often on a mobile phone. So that's obviously a huge change from 10, 15 years ago. But the idea of a friction audit, the idea in customer journey mapping, I think, is you're looking for pain points or friction points, whatever you want to call them, to eliminate. And you're looking for points in the customer journey to kind of amplify the wow. So there's sort of the two areas it's pointed in. But the friction audit is really just simply going through the basics of what you think. And if you can spend a little bit of money or a little bit of time on some additional research, great. But I think if you just ask a subset of customers, ask your sales associates, whatever, to map out the customer journey, to maybe look at what competitors do differently, and ask yourself whether there are any bumps in the road, essentially. So, if you believe that customers, which is probably a pretty good guess, are likely to be starting their journey online, where are they going? How are you showing up relative? Are you showing up? How are you showing up relative to competition? And just kind of think of that path and where there's loss of efficiency, essentially, because people are going through gates all the way to the point of purchase and close and moving in and so forth, right? So where are those opportunities where you could do a better job? And I often find that a pretty simple friction audit reveals some things that you can do pretty quickly and pretty inexpensively.
Yeah.
You often also discover things that are more involved. So I'm not going to say that everything you're going to discover is easily or inexpensively solved, but sometimes you find things that you can address pretty quickly.
One of the ways I've trained sales people over time has been to say, what do they say to each other when they get in the car on their drive back home or back to their apartment or whatever? They've just spent half an hour with you in a model, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it was. What do they say when they get in the car? And the fact is, folks, your team members know exactly where your friction points are. And leaders that are listening, I'm going to challenge you, they've probably been telling you. And for whatever reason, it's not been a priority. But at this point, if we bring everything together that we talked about with Steve today, with the collapse of the middle, meaning not memorable, not value, not upscale, just stuck, kind of in a sea of sameness. And then we think about, but what is remarkable? Well, it's the human-centered approach that involves all of our constituencies together. And then we look for, in our strategy and in our execution, these opportunities. And this friction audit will help you get there. And I promise you, you already know what they are. You just haven't tackled them yet.
And we've talked a lot about customers today and referred to customers. And I think sometimes, and we've talked about this in previous Builder Town Halls, but I think we think of customers as buyers, somebody who has bought, but I think we need to think of customers as those who are on our website and who have registered. And how are we treating our customers? During, the last couple of years, up until about 6 months ago, we didn't really have to treat them that well, right? And we didn't, but how are we treating them now? So they register on our website. What happens next? And I think, when we talk about that friction audit, that's a really great first step. What is happening once they register?
Right.
All right.
Or why are they not?
Yeah, Steve, I'm going to let Steve wrap us up, and then we're going to launch our pop quiz and do our giveaways.
Yeah, well, just quickly, the other thing I was going to suggest, kind of related to the friction audit, but more broadly, is I heard Mindy Grossman, who at the time was running the Home Shopping Network. So this was a number of years ago, but I saw her speak at a conference. And one of the things she said, it was in the context of just how digital was changing, the customer experience more broadly. She said, more and more, something like more and more, you're only as good as your customer's last experience. And the point she was trying to make is, if you can go to Amazon and have a certain kind of experience, customer expectations may be carried over to completely different industries, right? That's like, if my mobile device allows me to order something online and pick it up or make an appointment or, whatever, like if I've had that experience with a hotel or at a restaurant or a retailer, you're often bringing that to your next experience buying whatever. And so, I think it's one thing to do your customer journey mapping or just kind of your strategy audit relative to your most direct competitors. But I would also say that the future of your business is happening somewhere else in the world, perhaps in a different industry. So paying attention to innovation outside of your industry can often, either give you a heads up to what's likely coming, and just hasn't happened because maybe, it's not as big a problem, or the investment dollars aren't there, or whatever. But it can also maybe find some inspiration for something you can do to kind of leapfrog the competition. So don't just stay within, your particular lane. I think look other places for inspiration as well.
Yeah, Angela just put in chat, the future of your business is happening in another industry. And that is so perfect, and that's perfect. Okay, I am going to launch our quiz. Here we go. All right, question number 1. What does Steve mean by the death of the middle? Now, we covered this. Is it A, the shrinking of the middle class? The hardships of being a middle child? Horrors of the middle airplane seat? That is horrible. Or the collapse of boring, mediocre, status quo brands who have not clearly defined their audience. All right, now why am I not seeing any answers? Are you guys answering these? I see in chat. Okay.
Oh, they can't, they're.
That's it.
They're doing it?
DDD.
DDD. All right, that's it. Good
DDD.
job. All right, Anne and Jessica are in the lead. All right, number 2. Companies who struggling to make sales typically have what 2 issues? We talked about this. Is it leadership and knowledge? It might be, but not today. Strategy and execution, or product and prices. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Good job. Good job, everybody. All right, number 3. This is a quote that I loved that of yours, Steve, that I used to promote today because I thought it was just short, sweet, to the point. Physical retail isn't dead. What retail is dead? What is it? So, okay, put in the chat, what word, fill in the blank. What do you think? What kind of retail is it? Yeah, Jessica, there we go. She's on top of it. It's boring retail. Yeah. Okay. Remarkable companies understand the difference between customer-centric and human-centered. All right, so what do we got here? Look at these. Is it A, B, or is it C? I know this is a long one you have to read. Okay, this is easy. Come on now. There we go.
There we go.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Erin. They had to read it. I wrote it too long. They had to read it.
Delayed response.
Yeah. See, okay, good. Okay, next one. People buy the blank before they buy the product. What? Yeah. We were listening.
Good story.
Good job. Okay, very good. Okay. Number 6, there's only 10. We're almost there. What is a friction audit? What is a friction audit? Quick and inexpensive process to identify points of frustration in the customer journey, detailed mapping of customer journey, audit of internal processes, and looking for ways to cut costs. There we go. That's right. That's what we said. Good job. Okay. What does Steve mean by amplify the wow? Does he mean conduct a SWOT analysis? Dialing up the most impactful and memorable parts of your customer experience? Identify wow opportunities with a competitive analysis. Now, again, all of those things would be good to do, but just in terms of our discussion today, yeah, it's B. Good job. Okay. All team members in the organization are influencers, even if they don't interact directly with customers. True or false? Oh, there we go. Cindy's in there. True. Mandy, good job.
Oh,
yeah.
We have some common people at the top here.
Yeah, we do.
And Jessica, Mandy.
Yeah,
Erin.
I know. All right. To be a remarkable marketing or sales leader, you must serve the customer blank worthy moments throughout the experience. What word? What kind of worthy moments throughout the experience? There we go. Yep. Wow.
Did you like my wow?
I did. All right, last one. Here we go. All right, Angela, we got to figure out who's going to win the books.
I know. I'm keeping my eye on it.
Okay. All right. Here's your last choice to win.
We might have to give away more.
We might have to. Wow-worthy moments in the customer experience are, what makes a wow-worthy moment? Unexpected and memorable, compels the customers to tell others about it, interesting and entertaining. So what do we have? Yes, all of the above. Good job.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, and some of you actually did the poll, like oh, that's good.
Well, I know, and I'm confused. Can we end the poll? Because will we see who actually participated in the poll? This is new. This is new functionality
This
for
is
us.
new. Yes. Yes. I can do share results.
Oh, we can share.
Do you see it? And it shows the correct answer. Do you guys see that? I don't know what you see. I see it.
I see it too, but I think I'm a panelist. I'm an organizer. So
you know what? While you guys are figuring all this out, Angela and I want to be remarkable today. We want to create a wow moment because we understand how to do that. So happy birthday.
oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Happy birthday, 5-0. Count my candles. But here's the best part.
It's your birthday month. It's your birthday month, Meredith.
It is. It is. I know.
Here's the best part. I had the ingredients for the cake, but not the frosting.
It's still remarkable. It's
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Thank you guys. Yes, I turned the big 5-0 this month. What happened? What happened? Well, it is our pleasure. Yeah, it's our pleasure to bring you Builder Town Hall every month. As Angela figures out who our winners are, let me just tell you that our November meeting, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about November. We're going to have Jim Allen of the Jim Allen Group as our special guest. Their team is the #1 Coldwell Banker team in the nation. And Jim and his team, they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for local charities every year. That's how they are remarkable. And that's how they stand out. And November being Thanksgiving month, we're going to talk about the doing good in the community is good business. And Jim's company is a great way. He's also currently running a goat tour. It's the greatest homes of all times goat tour. And there's pictures of Jim holding a goat all over Facebook, which is fantastic. And they've got a whole website and a campaign they're doing for their goat tour. And I think you guys will enjoy learning about that and learning about how much good they do in the community and what it's done for his business. So that's November. Okay, Angela.
Awesome. And Steve, you were awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I am so proud to be working and speaking and looking at someone who thinks retail.
Yeah.
You're the best.
Thanks. All right, Ange, who's our winners?
Well, you know what? I'm not able to actually see who participated, Meredith. So
yes, I know.
I'm just gonna throw out some names. We have Erin, Jessica, Mandy, and Anne, who were really hot in the chat.
Yes.
And I'm going to have to see, I think we may be able to give a couple more away. So Jennifer and Meredith also, Meredith with an I.
Yes, not this one.
Yeah. So you know what, I will get your contact information. If I don't know you, I'll get your contact info from Meredith, and I'll be in touch to determine what format of the book. It's in Kindle, it's an audiobook, and it's in a hardcover as well. So we will get that to you via Amazon.
Thank you, Angela.
Awesome.
What's that, Karen?
I love to read, to listen, but the hard copy with your highlights and your notes to go back and back and back is pretty awesome.
It sure is.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Steve. You've given us an hour and about 15 minutes of your valuable time today. We appreciate you so much for being willing to participate. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carrie and Inge, for the birthday shout out. I appreciate it. And we will see you all back here the first Friday of November at noon to learn from Jim Allen and the Jim Allen Group. All right. Have a fantastic Friday. Go be remarkable. Thanks, guys.
Yes,
Bye.
go be remarkable.